I'm going to demonstrate easy ways to make your own hand-cut letters. And what I have is some nice bright colored photocopy paper. Now this is better than construction paper because construction paper fades. It's a useless paper. Sad that we've got so much of it in the world in schools. But anyway, the way to make cut paper letters is this. It's very simple. What you have to decide is how tall and how wide you want the letters to be. So I'm going to decide that all my letters are going to be about 2.5, almost 3 inches high. That was what so now to make sure that all the letters that I cut out, so I'm just going to cut pink letters today. I am going to cut the strips all the same width. So I'm just doing it by hand. You don't have to use a ruler. You don't have to be scientific about it or that precise. So then what I'm going to do, and the good thing and the best thing to do is to try and imagine the letter in the shape. Now, very few letters are filling out a square shape. They're mostly rectangular. So, for example, I'm going to take this rectangle, and remember, they're all going to be the same height. So I'm going to take I could take my own name. Okay, I'm going to start with cutting the letter K. So I'm cutting all capital letters this time, and I'm going to imagine this K. And if it's a little wonky, that's okay. These are slightly wonky letters, but when you see them all together, they actually look pretty darn good. So I'm going to go here. Now what I'm trying to do is keep the width of each piece of the letter the same. So here's my K. Oh wait, to make it look nice, I'm going to do something here so that you can see this better. All right, so we'll put the K up here. Now the next letter I'm going to do is an A, so I'm going to imagine the A. And remember, I have to remember that each part of the letter has to be the same width. So there are the sides. Now I have to be a little tricky with this. So I have to give it just a little bit of a fold and make a little cut so I can get my scissors in to get in here and cut this out. Now, if I didn't think, or I had a really heavy paper, it's true, I could have just cut right through there and done that, because when I glue it down, it would be fine. So let's make a cat. First part of my name, so I'm going to make a T. But just for fun, I'll cut out some more challenging letters. So, okay, so here's K-A-T. Now, if you recall, so all the letters are the same height, and that's what's going to keep them holding together as a nice alphabet. Something you can remember when you start to put them together is that letters, to read this as the word cat, as a name, cats. I'm never called Cat, but some people I know called Kathy are. You need to keep the letters fairly close together. Now, if I were to become, for the purpose of this demonstration, Katie, remember I ended up with this strip here that wasn't really as wide that way or as high, but I can cut some pieces that are as high, because if I wanted to make the letter, oops, need to cut it so it's the right height. If I wanted to make an I, here we go, I can use some of these smaller pieces of paper. Here's an I, And even if I wanted to be Kathy with an E or a Katie with an E, I could now cut an E out of this. So the more letters you cut, the better you're going to get at imagining the letter within the shape that you have. Okay, so now we can do, or I could change it to Kate. Isn't that tricky? There we go. So now we get Kate. And I could cut lots of other letters out. But this is a very simple way to go. And of course, I could make little tiny letters. So if I change the height, supposing I want to make a little tiny alphabet, so these letters are only going to be this high, so I can make a little tiny K. And I could redo my name in a little tiny letter. I haven't demonstrated lowercase, but of course you can do that. Now, there's a little K, so I could make a whole set of letters to go. So you can vary the shape and size. And if you want to be very fancy, you could try to cut letters that, but you might have to draw them that had a serif on them, which is, we call it a serif when letters have a little sort of pokey bit. I'll draw one so you can see. So you don't have to only draw these boxy letters. You could also draw letters that look a little fancier, like this K, so you can play around with. Which takes me to the next thing that you can have fun with letters, because when you're doing posters and displays and things, you need many different kinds of letters, so you need to be able to draw letters too. So one of the things that I think is fun for people to try to do is to make up their own alphabet. So you can just start playing around. So we have an A. What about if we made A's that every place things were joined, they had a little round bit like that. So here I'm making up an alphabet. What if I wanted to make a wiggly alphabet? And maybe it has something on it too, or a jagged alphabet. You have to watch out, so you have to experiment, because at some point you may get to the point where it doesn't look like a letter. You can also do letters where you just imagine the letter and draw only the outline. Like that. Or you could do a letter and you can invent an alphabet where you did that, but maybe you did patterning with it, so it became a polka dot alphabet. So anyway, so you can have lots of fun playing around. A. So I'm only doing that because you have to watch out that you don't create other things that are very confusing. So is that an A? I don't know. It looks like a teepee with a big door in it. So you have to play, be patient with yourself, and just have some fun with typography and letters. And remember what I said about the serifs here? So an alphabet that is sans serif is an alphabet that looks like that. And if it's an alphabet with a serif, it has a little thing like that, the end of each piece. This actually came from the way that alphabets were chiseled into marble at one point, and there was a little chisel mark that ended up. But now, in terms of fancy typography design, you get some very famous Times New Roman. So everyone has a computer now, and you can look up and choose things. So Times New Roman has a serif. Georgia, there's some popular ones. Helvetica is the one that you always see that is the plain one. But here's something interesting just to add as an aside about letters. It is actually easier to read letters that are fancier, especially letters that have serifs in them. So if you're doing a title in a book, that's fine. You can have big, plain, ho-ho, plain letters like that. But if you have a page of lots of type, you want to have letters like Times New Roman or Georgia or any of the serif letters, because the eye reads words, and it's easier actually to learn to read from letters that are more different from each other than they are the same. So a sans serif alphabet is a lot harder for actually children to learn to read than it is if you do this. Change it up a bit. Who knew? Well, some people have known that for years and years, hundreds of years. Here we go, typography in an instant.